Yeah, soldiers, it's your boy, the Anime Sage, coming at you with another video, and this is a bit of a different video. And again, it's my attempt to get into, I guess, newer, fresher content for my channel. But for this video, we're going to be discussing the rivalry dynamic of Naruto. Now, again, as the thumbnail suggests, we're going to be discussing not only the rivalry dynamic between Naruto and Sasuke, but not only that, we're going to be discussing some other rivalries that are, shown throughout the entire series. And I'll bring up a couple of examples, throughout the entire video, but we'll be discussing characters like Kakashi and Obito a little bit earlier on, even though there's like a little slightly less information about that. And of course, some other small rivalries like we had with Sakura and Ino, and even and of course Rock Lee and Neji. So let's get into this video. So first off, let's go into, I guess, the more minor rivalry between Ino and Sakura. Now, we know what a rivalry is, essentially competition. And usually there are certain things that kind of motivate a rivalry. For Ino and Sakura, it is the pursuit of Sasuke for the beginning stages of the story. Now, why is Sasuke kind of a big motivating factor? Because, of course, both these characters have a crush on Sasuke. I wouldn't necessarily say call it love, but I guess they'll call it love, so whatever. So, as these two characters early on, they have the motivation to surpass each other and who gets Sasuke over the other. They kind of have every amount of their competition kind of focuses on that pursuit of Sasuke in the earlier parts of Naruto in part 1. So what this means is that because of this, Sakura and Ino, especially in the tuning exams, they will look to always surpass each other and show what they've got and always give it their all against each other. And even if it's not necessarily the greatest performance, see their fight in tuning exams, it's at least something that you can say, well, they're at least giving it their all against each other because they're rivals. And over time, these two will eventually learn to, be friends with each other and understand that maybe there are some things that are better than, chasing after boys. Well, I guess Ino kind of understands this a bit more than Sakura, but, it's whatever. But in any case, I do think that this rivalry is a bit of more of a teen girl rivalry, but I think it's something that you can at least understand because, one, they're teenage girls, you know what I'm saying, and the other thing is that Sasuke throughout the entire series has been known as a bit of a, I guess, chick magnet, where he wants to be or not. But because of this, it's kind of one of the main bases of the rivalry, because these two characters believe that they're supposed to be with Sasuke earlier on in their, I guess, tween to teenage years. And that's kind of what motivates this kind of competition between the two. So that's one rivalry there. Now let's go into Rock Lee versus Neji. And this rivalry is a bit of a competition and hadn't had many moments of, competition besides some mentions here and there. But there is a bit of a couple statements here and there by Rock Lee that he wants to surpass and beat Neji. And there are two motivating factors behind this. A little bit deeper than I think the Sakura and Ino rivalry, has and stuff like that. It's more so the fact that, one, Rock Lee respects Neji as a niche shinobi because was touted as the most powerful Genin of all time, and if Rock Lee is able to surpass him, that's going to make him feel very good, especially with all the circumstances he had earlier in his life. And then, of course, number two, Rock Lee has always been touted as a kind of someone who isn't necessarily important, someone who's not going to achieve much in his life, someone who is not really meant for success, which is why, he had to only rely on his taijutsu for a majority of his life to be a competent shinobi. It's because he can't use ninjutsu or genjutsu. He has to rely on taijutsu. And Neji at certain points had looked down upon him, and while you can make the argument that is not necessarily the greatest thing to do, it's understandable because, one, Neji is a prodigy, and well, that's one major reason, and two, Neji has always had this, belief in fate that you can't really change your destiny, and he had held this belief up until Naruto clapped him in the tuning exams. So what ends up happening here is that Rock Lee, seeing that Neji is this massive prodigy, and seeing as Neji had at certain points looked down upon him in certain ways, he believes and had been like, you can't necessarily change your fate and stuff like that. Rock Lee wants to prove Neji wrong in this sense, and if he can beat Neji, maybe he can, one, show him that yes, he is destined for success and can change his fate, but also, two, He's a powerful a ninja slash shinobi. So that's kind of an interesting dynamic there. Something that's not necessarily brought up upon as much in the earlier parts of part 1, but it is something that you can at least see hints of here and there about certain motivations for Rock Lee. And even though, again, they never really had a duel with each other that we could be like, oh yes, they're gonna have a fight with each other, especially now since Nechi's dead. Rest in peace. We can at least see that there was a foundation here for a decent rivalry, and we understand the motivations for why. One's, again, was looked down upon as a failure, while the other one is a prodigy. Now we go into the rivalry I think has a bit of similarities to the Naruto and Sasuke rivalry, Kakashi and Obito. Obito had been looked down upon as a kind of a failure in himself because he's an Uchiha prodigy, but he was also an orphan, and he is not necessarily the strongest ninja in the world. So that's kind of one thing that's in the way of Obito being successful. He's not necessarily that great. He didn't have parents growing up, and has a lot of similarities in general to Naruto because, again, Naruto had those same struggles himself. Then we go to Kakashi, and he has a lot of similarities to Sasuke, to Uchiha, because, Kakashi lost both his parents at a very young age, his mother first, and then a little later on, he saw his father at a very young age, commit not alive. So, yeah, not a great thing, I guess, for Kakashi. And, of course, he was also a bit of a prodigy like Sasuke in his earlier years. But Kakashi was an even bigger prodigy because he became Chunin at the age of 6 and became Chunin at 12, which you can honestly say is pretty insane. Now, in Obito's case, just kind of like Naruto, Obito was trying to compete for the heart of Rin, just like Naruto was trying to compete for the heart of Sakura. So Obito would try everything in his power to, of course, impress Rin. And I think, and speaking of, in the case of Rin, she probably deep down liked Obito, but, still had that crush for Kakashi because, like Sasuke, Kakashi was a heartthrob for girls. So, yeah. But when it came down to it, Obito in many ways influenced Kakashi in many ways because he was the one who said, those who break the rules are scum, but those who abandon their friends are worse than scum. And that would be something that we would see in the earlier chapters of Naruto manga, and of course the first couple episodes of Naruto, be preached throughout the series because, Kakashi learned that from Obito when he was about to essentially abandon Rin, and because he was like, we gotta focus on the mission, we gotta focus on the rules. But because of what Obito did for him, it actually influenced him on the other side. So that's something that you can take a bit of intrigue in terms of this rivalry between the two, which would eventually kind of form into a comradeship, but it would be short-lived because Obito would be crushed by the rock, and we kind of know what happened afterwards. And when it comes down to Obito and Kakashi, both of them have very interesting similarities to Naruto and Sasuke, but there's something that we all have to look at here that is very different about them. They both represent two sides of that could have been with Naruto and Sasuke. Obito is a representation of what would happen if, Naruto had given into his own darkness. Because Obito was influenced by Madara and into the character we saw throughout the entirety of Naruto Shippuden, and of course the 4th Great Ninja War specifically. And then we got Kakashi, who is a representation of what would happen if Sasuke had not necessarily given into his darkness, or given into revenge and all the other negative traits that Sasuke gave into. Now, again, both are, both paths are very understandable. For Sasuke, he gave into his revenge because, he wanted to, avenge the Uchiha clan because he saw his own brother take the lives of his own parents at a very young age. But for Kakashi, it's also very understandable that he's able to at least get out of that mindset because he had people to help him out and overcome it, such as, of course, namely my guy. Then, especially with all the loss that Kakashi had suffered over years with not only his teammate dying, quote unquote, but eventually being found out to be alive and caused all the issues that were Naruto Shippuden as the masked man. And, no pun intended, I guess, my boy Mass. But he also had Kakashi kill his teammate that he was supposed to protect after Obito, quote unquote, died in Rin, and also saw his teacher die and he couldn't do anything about it. So there's a lot of heartbreak for Kakashi, but he was able to not necessarily give into that darkness and depression that he was under for those events happening to him. Which Kakashi is not only meant to be a character who has overcome loss, but also, again, represent how, Sasuke could have been had he not given into his darkness. Now, we would also eventually see Kakashi and Obito meet within the 4th Great Ninja War, as stated earlier, and they would both have their own fight, which would be one of the better moments in the entire war arc. Mostly because not only was this a fight between two former friends, but it was also they both knew that they had like their own memories in between that they share with each other. Then they could think about the good times. But when you see those flashbacks in between and you see what's happening now, you can kind of see some heartbreak in between, specifically for Kakashi, because a guy that he saw as a friend, a guy that, well, eventual friend that he wanted to fight in honor of, who has his own Sharingan in his eye. When he saw that Obito had become this, that definitely in many ways broke him in many, and it was very, and I would probably say that if I was in that situation, it'd be very hard to overcome that type of stuff, because it's kind of a shock to your own system and you just don't know if you really want to do anything about it, you know what I'm saying? So we would eventually see Naruto eventually convert Obito and get him out of the darkness. But Obito himself would eventually try to, make his own sacrifices and become pretty integral to the fight between Kaguya and the Team 7 company. And eventually Obito would die in peace in the afterlife, as he would spend the rest of his time with Rin and be reunited with her. While Kakashi would eventually, get to Double Susanoo State, Team 7 would eventually be able to seal up Kaguya. And at the end of the day, well, Kakashi would do what Obito wanted to do earlier in life, and was kind of one of, I guess, Obito's last requests, and that was for Kakashi to become the 6th Hokage, which he would do. And then Naruto would become Hokage, just like Obito said you would, like when he said that he would be a great Hokage. When we look at this, the rivalry between Kakashi and Obito formed from a bit of a, petty squabble and stuff like that, seeing who's better, blah, 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 to eventually seeing, both of them confront each other throughout the entirety of the Naruto Shippuden, specifically, as Kakashi would have to, face his former friend, while Obito would just fight him and just treat him as another person, just manipulate him and try to break him emotionally. Which, yeah, that's a pretty sad situation. You also see Kakashi probably slowly having to see that whether or not he would have to kill Obito, whether or not Naruto would find a way to save him, or whether or not Obito could be saved or not. He knew that that while there was some part of Obito that was still there, a lot of what was going on with Obito was that he wasn't necessarily the person that he was before he got crushed by the rock. The person that he saw growing up, that he was, teammates with, and went through all the trials and tribulation that they both went through, he was at a point gone. And eventually, while Obito would eventually get out of that darkness, it would be at the cost of his life, but at least it gave him a happy ending in between, because he'd be able to be reunited with Rin. So at least we have a bit of closure there. Now we go into Naruto and Sasuke, and this is again some form of similarity between the rivalry between Kakashi and Obito. With Naruto and Sasuke, it will be a petty rivalry that would eventually form into one of the characters essentially trying to drag their friend out of the darkness. Naruto throughout the entire of the story, which was trying to save Sasuke from his thoughts of revenge, the curse of hatred from the Mangekyou Sharingan, and everything in between that was influencing Sasuke at that point. Now, as again I said before, that Sasuke and Kakashi had similar childhoods where they both lost their parents, but the similarities kind of end a bit there when you realize that Sasuke not only lost his parents but his entire clan, and it was at the hands of his own brother. That's a lot more potential, mental trauma that's going to be had there, I guess, or hand out to you if you experience something like that, because it's one thing to see, your clan get murdered, or your parents get murdered, or them being lost at a young age, but it's another thing to have a whole family member that you respected and loved to just do the deed himself and be like, I never really loved you, I did this out of power, I was only acting like the brother that you were supposed to love, and stuff like that. And with the statement that Itachi said earlier on in part 1 of Naruto, but it would this kind of would influence Sasuke into the character that he was from parts 1 to earlier part 2, and he would focus on everything to one goal, which was to kill Itachi and avenge his clan. It was something that he said from the introductions when he was put on a team with Naruto and Sakura, and he would again continue that up until he fought Itachi, and Itachi just died because ninja cancer. So yeah, but you would even see like Sasuke, go, abandon his entire village just so he could have the strength to kill Itachi, because when he got caught by Itachi in part 1, when Naruto was trying to find Tsunade with Jiraiya, and he had to face Itachi and Kisame, and Sasuke just bumped him and just was like, yeah, I'm gonna kill Itachi here. He got clapped, and that kind of made Sasuke question what has he been doing his entire life. So when the Sound 4 come and influence Sasuke, he's like, okay, I'm gonna join Orochimaru, get some training, and while I'm probably gonna use him so I can get stronger, but I'll just, and he might, take my body and stuff like that, but I'm gonna take the rest so I can get stronger. And you know what? At a certain point, Sasuke thought that it was all over. His pain, suffering, everything that had been becoming obstacles to him, which was all fed into Itachi, it was like he felt like all of his pain, sufferings, and stuff like that was over. However, when Obito comes in and is like, that's not what happened. Your brother was kind of ordered by Danzo to kill your entire clan. It kind of destroyed Sasuke from two perspectives. One, for his entire life, he had thought that Itachi was his main the main villain, the bad guy. He was the guy that took everything from him. But when he learns that it was Danzo, a very prominent member of his village, not only would he have hatred towards Danzo, but he would also have hatred for the Leaf Village. Because Hiruzen, this is kind of one of his own failures. It was because he didn't do anything to stop the Uchiha massacre / genocide, essentially. And when it came down to it, neither did any of the top elders, and Danzo was one to order it, so he eventually have hatred for the village, because those are the main leaders that represent the entire hierarchy. Then we have, on another perspective, Sasuke had just like learned that because his brother was such a good person, he felt like his brother had been, majorly screwed. And honestly, we can all agree with that, because, Itachi was forced to live that type of lifestyle, but he felt like his brother had been wronged by the entire village, which would fuel more hatred towards the village, and it would be why Sasuke would eventually team up with the Akatsuki and Obito, and would kind of become the character that he was in like the second part of part 2. He would eventually try to learn from the histories of the first 4 Kage, such as stuff from Hashirama and Tobirama. He would eventually, come to this conclusion that that the world was cruel, and that he would eventually want to become everything the world despise, just so that there can be like some form of a conclusion to his life, and try to essentially throw his own life away, just be the main, center of hatred, and call for revolution. And Naruto would be like, nah, I'm about to stop that, and will eventually be taken out of the light. In the entire sequence of events, Sasuke had gone through events that, were the opposite of what Kakashi was, his antithesis, and would eventually be more so crowded into darkness, but Naruto had saved them. Naruto himself had multiple points in time where he could have given into his own darkness, so it's the time specifically against pain, but had his own father to help him out. And a theme that has been always present is not only one thing that not only has this rivalry kind of form into like was formed out of pettiness, but again, trying to drag someone out of the darkness, and the second part of it, which is eventually coming to understand each other, because Naruto at a certain point did not even understand what Sasuke was going through, because as Sasuke said when they first found the valley at the end, Naruto had been alone from the beginning, while Sasuke had everything and lost it. So Naruto couldn't fully understand Sasuke, even though they were both orphans. They both had different circumstances, and whether or not you can agree with that fully, that's just how it was perceived from Sasuke's perspective. And Naruto eventually, learning from Itachi throughout the Fourth Great Ninja War, would eventually come to understand fully Sasuke's position, learning all the stories from Obito and everything else, and it would eventually culminate into how Naruto would be able to drag Sasuke out of the darkness. However, there's one more layer that this rivalry has, and that's the rivalry between two brothers, Indra and Ashura. Why do I mention that? Because as we all know, Naruto and Sasuke are the reincarnations of Indra and Ashura. They're both destined to fight, and one of them will be killed. It's just and the cycle continues over and over and over and over and over again. And for a majority of that time, Naruto and Sasuke seem to have the steps into continuing that cycle. However, Naruto himself was able to break that destiny in their final fight of the Valley at the end, and both of them didn't die, and both of them, were still friends. Yeah, Sasuke, went around traveling around the entire world trying to find himself and stuff like that, redeem himself from his sins, while also having to deal with, the nastier stuff, which is the Otsutsuki type business, as we would find on Boruto. But he still pulled them out of the darkness, and they broke destiny. So to look at it this way, we had a petty rivalry that started from who to decide who was stronger, essentially, because Naruto had always looked up to Sasuke and saw him as stronger, so he wanted to surpass him. It evolved into a rivalry that essentially was trying to get Sasuke out of his darkness while also breaking a cycle of destiny that contained thousands of years of feuding. So yeah, that's pretty interesting when you think about it. And this is probably the one rivalry dynamic that has a lot more, complexities into it. Why wouldn't it? It's between it involves the main character and the main tutor antagonist. So of course it would have the more interesting complexities around it. But I feel like the rivalry dynamics in Naruto form some interesting scenarios that not only make sense but have some interesting themes involved inside of them. And I think that sitting here talking about them has been pretty fun. If you like this video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications for the video. Shout out to my $10 patrons, their names on screen, and my $50 patron, Anguish. And yeah, this has been a pretty interesting video, and I hope you all, again, enjoyed. We're getting closer to 26k, and we can eventually reach 30k by the end of the year. I also hope that you guys enjoy this type of content moving forward, in addition to, what ifs and stuff like that. And, if you have any suggestions for, other topics in the world of Naruto, or any other anime series that you kind of like, I will be happy to talk about them. So, yeah, that's about it, though, for this video. Make sure, again, this has been your boy, the Anime Sage, signing out. Peace. Yorha. Stephanie Shea closes out. Bye-bye. Peace.
Hi, this is Stephanie Shea, voice actress for Sailor Moon, Hinata, Orihime, and you are watching Anime Sage.